Hey guys, what's up? Kalamazi here, and this is going to be a quick dungeon guide for Freehold, which is one of the 4 dungeons available on the World of Warcraft Battle for Azeroth Alpha. Freehold consists of 4 actual bosses, and a fairly good bit of trash, which actually has some of the abilities that the bosses have themselves. Freehold is a pirate-based dungeon located in the south of Tiragard Sound, and until recently has existed as a central hub for pirates and other unruly visitors. Recently, however, the Irontide Raiders have taken control of the city and are attempting to unite all of the separate groups under one banner. Now, there actually is a fair bit of trash until you reach the first boss, with 2 different routes you can take to get to him. And one of the abilities that you'll notice here is that pool that appeared there, the green and purple pool, and it's basically guano that he's throwing, the first boss that is, from his mount at you. It'll keep appearing until you kill the first boss, and besides that, the only other mechanic that you really need to watch out for here is that red circle that appeared right there, and that'll be present throughout most of the trash in the dungeon. As I did mention before, there is a lot of trash for the first boss, and one thing you actually need to watch out for here is that when the trash gets low on health, it does begin to run away in fear, which is very similar to something that you see in Toll the Gore. With all the trash being so close to each other, it's very easy to actually proximity pull additional packs, which is something that you really need to watch out for. Once you clear all that trash, the first boss you're going to encounter is named Captain Kragg. He has a few abilities, while none of them are very challenging. It's a pretty straightforward boss. The first ability you're going to see here is Charge. He's going to charge a random player, inflicting a small amount of nature damage and knocking them back. Basically just avoid the large circle he puts in the ground, as you have plenty of time to move out of it. The next ability he has is called Azeroth Powder Shot, which is a 30-yard cone in front of the boss, and it deals a fair bit of damage. The best way to avoid it is just not to stand in front of the boss and look where he's pointing when he begins his cast, and just easily move out of it. Now, Revitalizing Brew is the one mechanic you really need to look out for, and it's going to be especially relevant on Tyrannica weeks and higher keys in general. Basically, he starts chugging an elixir on the ground which heals him for a certain amount every 1 second for 5 seconds, and this needs to be interrupted as soon as possible. Now, like I mentioned before as well, one thing you'll notice here is that those small green pools that are on the ground there are actually still present on the boss, and that's the ability that Sharkbait, his mount, is actually using. It's called Vile Bombardment, and it does a small bit of damage if you step into it, but it also decreases your movement speed by 40%. Now, if you step in that and also get targeted by a dive bomb, that could lead to some serious issues. And the last ability we need to watch out for is called Pistol Shot, where the boss will draw a concealed pistol and fire a quick shot at an enemy, dealing a fair bit of damage. Realistically, it's something that your healers are just going to have to watch out for, as I didn't actually see a cast time on it. I would imagine it's more so just an instant cast with a smaller internal cooldown that he uses. And when you actually defeat the boss, you have a very small chance of him actually dropping his mount for you, which I would imagine is somewhere around 1%, but it's an awesome mount, and it's probably something I'll be farming most of the expansion and actually never even get. Now, there's a fair bit of trash before the next boss, but the main thing you want to pay attention to here is the actual event. Now, when I first joined Alpha, it revolved around this pug here, and basically you had to clear all the trash in the area and catch the pug, which would eventually remove the 3rd member from the council, making it a 2-on-5 fight versus a 3-on-5 fight. Now you might be wondering why we have to actually remove the third member from the fight, and that's because if all three are present when you pull the boss, they gain a buff called Under One Banner, which increases their damage by 100 or so percent and their health by 100 or so percent as well, which basically makes the fight unkillable. Now there are different versions of the event that appear before the boss that helps you remove the third member from the fight, and I'm not sure if it's going to be on a weekly reset, like something along the lines of the first boss from Lower Karazhan, like the Opera event, or if it's going to be just a random spawn whenever you actually enter the instance. The only actual version I have encountered that hasn't been bugged or not working at this point involves this pug here. Like I said, basically you chase him around the entire area here, clearing the packs that he runs to, and when you catch him, he gives you the key to open the jailer cell right behind him here, and that member walks over and effectively removes the third member from the council fight, thus making it killable and removing the Under One Banner buff. Now the trash here is not too threatening as long as you're able to handle it accordingly. The crack shots hurt a bit, but they can be gripped in and stunned and everything along with the rest of it. The main thing as you see right there is you want to interrupt every time is the ability that the oarsmen do here. It's called Sea Spout, and basically if you stand in that, it deals a fair bit of damage and also knocks you up in the air. Being knocked up in the air and then hit by one of the red circles on the way back down can lead to death pretty quickly, so make sure it's interrupted whenever possible. Now, as I mentioned before, the pug is the key to this fight. As you can see here, he has the key holder debuff, and basically the way you interact with him is just running up to him. He's going to run along the camp, and there should be a trash pack here, but we actually already cleared it. As you'll see here, he'll run to another one, and basically just clear the packs that he runs to. Whenever you get close enough to him, he'll run away again, and he'll either keep running until the very end of his route, or just stop, and you can interact with him then, take the key, open the cage, and thus remove the third member from the fight. Now, as you can see here, when we're pulling the Council of Captains, the third member's health bar inside is actually green. Like I said, you remove him from the fight, and he actually joins you and helps you fight the other two and kill the boss. Now, there are a few abilities we need to watch out here, and the first one's called Barrel Smash. It has a 10-yard radius, and basically the boss just starts smashing the ground for 4 seconds. Anybody in it takes a fair bit of damage and is stunned for a few seconds, so make sure you're not near them when he's doing Barrel Smash. Now, Blackout Barrel is another ability on the fight, and it's not too threatening. Basically, the boss throws a random barrel on an enemy and disorients them until the barrel is destroyed. Simply destroy it quickly and just break your party member out. Now, Grape Shot is the ability I would say you have to watch out for the most. It's where Eudora jumps across the arena in a random location, so starts shooting a cone out from her gun. Anybody standing in the cone takes a massive amount of damage, and realistically, if you're not pre-positioned accordingly, you're probably going to die if you get hit by it more than once. It hits really hard. The last ability that Eudora has is called Powder Shot. She basically just targets a random party member and deals 150% weapon damage to them as physical damage. It's probably something similar feeling to Morosa's Garrote in Lower Karazhan. It's just something that the healer is going to have to watch out for. It's going to be a bit of random damage. We didn't notice it was hitting too hard, but I would imagine on Tyrannic was going to be hitting pretty hard as well. And that's pretty much the fight. As long as you're able to plan accordingly for certain abilities that can be coming and move out of the shots and everything that Eudora does, it's pretty much just a personal responsibility fight. And it's probably my second favorite fight in here overall. Now, there's not a whole lot of trash until the third boss. There's realistically only 2 or 3 small packs and this Iron-Tide Crusher, which is the main thing you want to watch out for. He'll do a smash or a shatter, which you don't really want to be standing in, and he's also going to do that boulder throw there. Basically just move out of it. He does hit pretty hard, and it's not too hard to deal with on its own, but as you can see here, if he's pulled other trash packs by mistake, things do add up pretty quickly. Now this is technically the third boss. It's called the Ring of Booty, and it consists of, I guess you could say, three sort of stages. I guess you could say in increasing difficulty, as you'll see here. The first one involves actually not really any actual combat. It involves chasing and actually trying to catch a greased up pig. You'll see here, basically you can just chase it around. You do actually have to click it this time. It's not like the pug. Any group member can actually catch it. When they do, it starts phase 2 of the fight, which brings on the first boss that you have to fight. And he's not too hard. We'll go over it a bit more whenever he actually arrives here.
And entering the ring, we have the amazing, the incredible, the magnificent, the... What the... Really? It's a greased up pig? I'm beginning to think this is not a professional setup. Oh well, grab the pig and you win.
Now the pig's not too hard to catch here. It's actually sort of fun. The thing is, if you do try to catch him and you're not actually successful, he does stun you for about 2 seconds, and he is pretty quick here, so it's sort of a fun little mini game in the middle of a dungeon, but I can imagine it's probably going to be relatively annoying on Mythic Plus.
We caught a pig. Maybe we should move on to a more threatening challenge. From the sewers of Freehold comes a Tortolan brigand who makes it his duty to totally hurt you. He is the dynamo of defense, the sergeant of shell shock, the hellion in a half shell, Ludwig!
Now, Ludwig the Turtle, I guess you could say, is the second phase of the Ring of Booty. He really doesn't have a whole lot of abilities. The main ability, as you can see there, is Shell Bounce, and I guess he throws a part of his shell, or someone's shell, who knows, across the ring. He does it a few times, and they begin to stack up a bit, but they move glacially slow. You can just easily move out of them, and they do bounce off the walls and everything a bit, but like I said, they're just super easy to avoid. He doesn't really have a whole lot of health, which is suiting for, I guess you could say, the second boss in the Ring of Booty. And that's basically all there is to him. Just burn him down, basically.
Champion that sleeps with the fishes. Literally. The Freehold fanatic. The master of the jagged jawbone jab. The powerful pugilist predator. Trothak the Shark Puncher!
Now, Trothak the Shark Puncher. That's a suiting name for an end boss, if I ever heard one. He has a few abilities here we're going to go over. The first one is called Shark Toss. He'll basically throw one of the sharks on his arm at a random player, dealing a fair bit of damage to enemies within 8 yards. You'll see him throw it like he did at me right there. Just move out of it. Don't stand in it like me. But regardless, it doesn't do a whole lot, but it's going to do a lot more on higher keys and difficulties. The next ability we see here is called Shark Tornado, where he throws his shark, or I guess he grabs his shark by the tail and spins in a whirlwind kind of effect. It deals a lot of damage every 1 second to all enemies within 10 yards. You can see I just took the gateway there to get out of there. Just watch out for it. Have some kind of gateway down or just some movement ready. Plan to move out of it in general. The next ability we see here is called Rearm, where he charges a nearby shark and he's thrown, dealing a lot of damage to anybody who's actually caught in the charge. Now, one thing to make note of here is that when he does actually finish the charge, he grabs the shark off the ground and puts it back in his arm, which then enables him to do a shark toss or a shark tornado, as we see here. The next ability we see is called Flailing Shark, and it's basically a shark jumps to a party member, who I guess the closest party member to him, and deals a decent bit of damage to anybody within 5 yards. I guess a good way to counteract this could probably be to have the group sort of move as one unit, have somebody closer to the shark in general if you really wanted them to like take the Flailing Shark, but I don't think it's really that big of a deal. And Ripper Punch is the last ability we're going to see here, and he just chooses a nearby enemy and deals a little bit of damage to them and puts a ticking dot on them for 12 seconds, which is sort of similar, again, to Moros's Garrote in Lower Karazhan. That's basically the boss. He'll repeat his shark tornadoes and shark tosses, everything of the sort, but that's basically it. This is hands down my favorite boss of the dungeon, and probably in the running, honestly probably winning at this current point for my favorite boss in the Battle for Azeroth Alpha in general. Now we're heading to the last boss here, and there's about 4 or 5 trash packs left that we need to kill. And the thing is that you probably want to run in here and pull them past this bridge and make a bit of a larger pull or something, because as you can see here, getting stuck on this bridge leads to death and wiping very quickly. There's a new mob here called the Stormcallers, which have an ability called Thundering Squall, which you need to interrupt. It's basically the big lightning circle as you see there. And of course the Oarsmen are still present with their Sea Spout ability, which also needs to be interrupted, stunned, whatever what have you. And it's similar to the trash packs that you encountered before the Council of Captains set. If you get knocked up by the Oarsmen, not by not interrupting the Sea Spout, you're going to get stuck in the Thundering Squall, because that's not being interrupted because you're being knocked up in the air, whatever what have you, and it can very easily lead to a wipe. Harlan Sweet is the final boss of the instance, and he's the leader of the Irontide Raiders. He has 2 different, I guess you could say, sort of stances that he'll alternate between during the fight that you need to watch. The first one's called Loaded Dice Man of War, and the second is Loaded Dice All Hands. Man of War will increase his damage taken by 100%, but also allow him to cast his abilities more frequently. And Loaded Dice All Hands allows his abilities to target more than one, or just more party members in general. Now you can see he's the reason we've been taking Cannon Barrage the entire dungeon while clearing trash. It's basically those large swirly orange circles there, and they leave that large orange pool on the ground. Getting hit by the cannon actually leaves a debuff on you that ticks for a fair bit of damage every 0.8 seconds for 4 seconds, so make sure you don't get hit by them. Now you might have seen that mob come down there and die very quickly. That was an Irontide Grenadier. The boss is going to summon one, and it's going to fixate and charge a random party member. If it reaches them, it deals a fair bit of damage to them and all party members within 5 yards. Basically, they just need to be focused down and killed pretty quickly. They're not very easy to kite because they do move pretty quickly, but they don't have a lot of health, so they're pretty easy just to burn down in general. Now, as you can see here, the fight does ramp up pretty quickly with a lot of these cannon barrages stacking up and the floor becoming covered in orange pretty quickly. The last ability that you need to dodge here and deal with is called Swift Wind Saber. It's those black lines you see him sending out right here. Getting hit by them deals a fair bit of damage and knocks you back, and if you get knocked back into a cannon barrage, you're pretty much dead. So as you can see, when he gets this loaded dice and he starts casting his abilities more frequently on more members, as you see here, the fight ramps up very quickly. This is also going to be probably I would imagine, a very challenging fight on Tyrannical in general. Now, as you'll see here in a moment, the floor does begin to clear a bit from the cannon barrage and everything, but you really want to keep in mind your positioning here. It's like I mentioned 30 seconds ago. Being positioned so you're not going to get knocked back into the cannon barrage by the Swift Wind Saber is very important. As you'll see here, I eat a saber, I go into the cannon barrage, I die. And that overlapping with the Irontide Grenadiers and everything, like I said, can ramp up pretty quickly. But with that being said, that's basically all the dungeon. I hope this guide helped you guys out. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. And if you want to support the channel, remember to like, follow, and subscribe. Thanks so much, guys. Peace.